26-year-old Quandre Lee Wander is behind bars for fatally shooting his 27-year-old ex-girlfriend Karen Faye Brown. During the early morning hours of Monday the 4th of September, Karen was found unresponsive in front of an apartment complex in the 700 block of Gardens Court in Federalsburg, Maryland. Police arrived at the scene to find Karen lying in the grass with gunshot wounds. Medics responded and pronounced her dead at the scene. Authorities identified her ex-boyfriend Quandre as a suspect. The pair had been involved in a 4-year relationship, and Quandre was a father to 2 of her children aged 2 and 3. Her other children are aged 7 and 8. Investigators said the two had gotten into an argument at the time of the shooting. At around 9:30 a.m. that same morning, Quandre was arrested at a residence in Seaford, Delaware. He's charged with murder and gun-related charges, and he's awaiting extradition back to Maryland. Federalsburg Police Chief Michael McDermott said, "This was a very targeted and intentional act of Quandre against his victim. He intended to do exactly what he did, was very up close and personal." Chief McDermott said the couple had domestic issues in the past, with one incident being as recent as late August. He said we had warrants on file for an incident that occurred in Karen's location on the 20th of August. When the incident happened on the 20th, she was not injured. He didn't have a firearm. He just got away as quickly as he could before law enforcement was able to put a net around him, he added. Unbeknownst to Karen, he would show up at her doorstep 2 weeks later. She didn't want to have any further contact with him, and he made it quite clear that was not what he was willing to accept. I don't believe that she felt it would result in this. Chief McDermott said in this case, 2 lives were lost. I have a 27-year-old victim who will no longer be around for a family, and I have a 26-year-old suspect who will no doubt spend the rest of his life in prison. Karen's mother and aunt will now be raising her 4 children. On Monday the 4th of September, a Southampton County Sheriff's deputy in Cortland, Virginia was arrested after 2 months on the job for giving illegal materials to prisoners. 34-year-old Katie Renee McCann is charged with 2 felony counts of illegal conveyance of a cellular phone to a prisoner and 3 misdemeanor counts of delivery of articles to prisoners or committed persons. Katie was appointed a deputy on the 3rd of July and was assigned to the detention division when she was terminated from her position on Monday. Authorities said they received information about potential policy and criminal violations over the Labor Day weekend and immediately began investigating the allegations. The investigation led to warrants eventually being issued and her arrest. Katie was quickly released on a $5,000 bond. Her first court appearance is scheduled for Friday the 8th of September. 29-year-old Jason Iverson is behind bars for fatally shooting his pregnant sister, her unborn child and her husband at a Labor Day family picnic. A teenage boy was also struck, but is expected to be okay. Police said that 30-year-old Mercedes Iverson and her husband 31-year-old Tria Carter were at the park during the large gathering. At around 3:15 p.m. on Monday the 4th of September, authorities received numerous calls about a fight and a shooting at Stafford Park in Maple Heights, Ohio. Jason had a long-standing feud with his sister and her husband and went to the park after finding out they would be there. After arriving, Jason argued and started fighting with Mercedes and Tria, but they broke free and went to their car to avoid him. Jason then pulled out a gun and shot into the vehicle, striking and killing Mercedes and her unborn child. A 13-year-old boy who was also in the car was injured when a bullet grazed his arm. Police have not disclosed the exact relationship between the teenager and the other family members involved. Tria then exited the vehicle, and Jason chased him through the park to a bathroom where he shot and killed him. Jason was quickly arrested as he attempted to run from the park onto Auburn Avenue. On Wednesday the 6th of September, Jason was arraigned in court on charges of murder and attempted murder. He's held at the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $3 million bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 41-year-old Vaughn Cannon is behind bars for fatally shooting his 40-year-old wife Jordan Cannon. At just before 2 a.m. on Wednesday the 30th of August, authorities responded to a home at 10913 Southwest 30th Street in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma on reports of domestic disturbance and a shooting. Jordan's 17-year-old son told police he heard 5 gunshots and his stepfather screaming from the bedroom, so he ran out of the house and called 911. When officers arrived, they found Jordan deceased in the bedroom with multiple gunshot wounds. Vaughn remained on scene and he was taken into custody. When speaking with police, Vaughn said he didn't remember the entire incident, though he remembers being in the bedroom with his wife and hearing gunshots and calling his uncle. Investigators said the couple were engaged in a heated argument when Vaughn shot and killed his wife. Both Jordan and Vaughn were Cleveland County Sheriff's Office deputies. Vaughn's charged with first-degree murder and is held at the Canadian County Jail. He's since been let go from the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. Jordan reportedly filed for divorce in 2021 after 2 years of marriage, but the case was dismissed in October of 2022 because she did not show up for court. The investigation into the matter continues. A 31-year-old Pizza Hut manager is behind bars after raping an underage employee in the women's bathroom. The incident occurred on the night of Saturday the 26th of August at the fast food restaurant in Kissimmee, Florida. Calvin Cook is accused of telling a 16-year-old employee to clean the women's toilets before locking her in there with him and performing sex acts on her. The girl told deputies she felt forced to have sex with him because she was worried about making him upset and losing her job. She told her parents about what happened after a shift, and they called deputies. She said that Calvin started talking to her on social media and sent her explicit photos over Snapchat. He admitted to deputies that he committed sex acts on the girl and that he knew that she was underage, but he was unremorseful. The girl had reportedly only worked there for a few weeks. Calvin was arrested and charged with sexual battery of a minor, transmitting harmful information to a minor, unlawful use of a two-way communication device, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He's held at the Osceola County Jail, where he's been held on a $33,000 bond. Calvin was fired from his position after the incident. The investigation into the matter continues. 25-year-old Caitlin Lee Abernathy is behind bars for selling drugs. On Thursday the 24th of August, authorities busted Caitlin with more than 1 kilogram of fentanyl, which would be enough to kill over 500,000 people. Investigators said they had Caitlin under surveillance for suspected drug dealing at her home at 124 Dillard Street, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Deputies conducted a traffic stop along Candlenut Lane in Bowling Springs, South Carolina, and a canine alerted them to the drugs that were in the car. A search uncovered 941 grams of fentanyl, 20 grams of crystal meth, a pistol and a rifle. Deputies then obtained a search warrant for a storage unit Abernathy used and uncovered another 531 grams of fentanyl, 3 handguns and 4 long guns. Caitlin was arrested and charged with trafficking meth, trafficking fentanyl and possession of a weapon during a commission of a violent crime. She's held at the Spartanburg County Jail without bond. Court records show Caitlin was arrested 3 separate times on drug-related charges last year. 28-year-old daycare provider Hannah Joy Priest is behind bars after a toddler died in her care early this year. At around 12:30 p.m. on the 19th of January, authorities responded to Hannah's home at 1605 8th Street in Emmitsburg, Iowa, on report of an unresponsive child. When first responders arrived, they found 23-month-old Sebastian Jesperson laying unresponsive on his sleeping cot with head injuries. Medics rushed Sebastian to Palo Alto County Hospital and then transferred him to Blank Children's Hospital in Des Moines for more specialized care, but he succumbed to his injuries 5 days later. An autopsy was completed, and it was determined that Sebastian died from brain trauma consistent with inflicted injuries. Hannah told investigators that Sebastian was acting normal before putting him down for a nap at around noon. She denied that he suffered any accidental head injuries while in her care that day, and denied that any other kid she was looking after had struck him. She did admit to being frustrated with the baby at around nap time because he had not yet gone to the bathroom that day. She said that she set the child into the cot by his shoulders and may not have known her own strength when doing so. She said that the child normally puts himself into the cot as it's only a few feet off the floor, and that she did set him into the cot out of frustration. As a result of the investigation, on the 1st of September, Hannah was arrested and charged with child endangerment resulting in death. She's been held at the Palo Alto County Jail on a $50,000 cash-only bond. "19-year-old Ashley Cheatham is behind bars on multiple offences after a boyfriend found some disturbing images of his 3-year-old daughter on her phone. At 10:11 a.m. on the 22nd of August, an officer responded to the Stillwater Police Department lobby in Oklahoma, where he met with a very distraught parent. The parent said he recently met Ashley online, who was from the Oklahoma City area, and became his girlfriend and moved in with him. He said that while she was sleeping, he went through her phone and found some disturbing images and videos of his 3-year-old daughter. She was arrested and charged with possession of child porn, child sexual exploitation, unlawful access to a computer, and unlawful possession of a controlled drug. She appeared in court on the 30th of August and pleaded not guilty to the charges. She's held at the Payne County Jail on a $75,000 bond. Her next court appearance is scheduled for the 11th of September. The investigation into the matter continues. On the 29th of August 2023, 58-year-old David Smith was sentenced to life in prison after being convicted of murdering his former neighbour, 80-year-old Donna Bricker. At just after 10:30 a.m. on the 6th of January 2019, police found Donna dead in a duplex home at 724 West Elliott Street in Springfield, Illinois, after relatives became worried because she didn't show up to church and requested a welfare check. Authorities said that David entered Donna's home and beat her in the head with a blunt object. He tied her hands behind her back and gagged her. He then used an electrical cord to strangle her, wrapping it around her neck multiple times, and stabbed her in the chest with a pair of scissors. An autopsy determined her cause of death was ligature strangulation, but noted that she had also been beaten and stabbed. During the investigation, detectives identified David as the suspect in Donna's murder, and he was arrested on the 14th of March 2019. He reportedly previously lived close to Donna. In 1994, David was previously convicted of aggravated burglary and robbery for breaking into a 76-year-old woman's house where he beat her and stole from her. During sentencing, Judge John Madonia said you did all of this after spending decades of your life in prison for an eerily similar offence. The court does not believe that you have rehabilitative potential that merits release from prison. The court needs to impose a sentence that protects the public from you forever. David addressed the courtroom, which was full of Donna's family and friends. He apologised for the pain the family is going through, but asserted that he did not kill Donna. On Thursday, the 31st of August 2023, 26-year-old Donovan Hollingsworth was convicted of fatally stabbing a friend and his dog while robbing him last year. At just after 9 a.m. on the 5th of February 2022, authorities responded to Olympus apartment homes at 10 Baker Boulevard in Eastham Township, New Jersey on reports of a possible dog attack on a resident. However, when officers arrived, they found 26-year-old Thomas Pearson dead inside the residence with multiple stab wounds. Thomas's dog, a cane corso named Django, was also found dead with stab wounds on a stairwell landing. Detectives identified Donovan as a suspect who had fled the scene. Authorities said that Donovan and Thomas knew each other, and Donovan went to Thomas's apartment with the intention of robbing him, and an altercation ensued during which he stabbed Thomas and Django. Police located Donovan several hours later at a nearby hospital, where he went for treatment for minor injuries from the altercation, and he was taken into custody. Donovan's been found guilty of first-degree murder, robbery, possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, cruelty to animals, and unlawful possession of a weapon. He's been held at the Burlington County Jail since his arrest, and he's scheduled for sentencing on the 27th of October. Police are looking for a man they believe is responsible for fatally shooting a woman. At 9:51 p.m. on Saturday, the 2nd of September, authorities responded to the 500 block of Henson Street in Birmingham, Alabama, after receiving a 911 call about a physical altercation. Shortly after arriving at the scene, officers found a deceased woman laying near the edge of the street with a gunshot wound. The victim was identified as 33-year-old Corianta Davis. No arrests had been made, but authorities provided a photo of a man they said that fled the scene and is wanted in connection with the shooting who possibly goes by the name of Eric. Those close to Corianta described her as full of energy and loved by everybody. She leaves behind 2 young sons. The investigation into the matter continues. "37-year-old Roderick Begay is behind bars after a 1-year-old boy died from ingesting a drug. At around 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 2nd of September, authorities responded to a home near North 151st Avenue and Cactus Road in Surprise, Arizona on reports of an unresponsive baby. When first responders arrived, they attempted life-saving measures on the boy. The child was taken to hospital, and officials say a narcotic was found in the child's system. The boy died at 2 a.m. the next morning. While investigating the initial scene, police found narcotics in the child's home. On Sunday, the 3rd of September, police arrested Roderick and charged him with manslaughter, child abuse, endangerment, misconduct with weapons, and prohibited possessor. He's held at the Maricopa County Jail on a $150,000 bond. He's due in court on Friday, the 8th of September. Police have not released Roderick's relationship to the boy, or if there's anyone else present in the home. The investigation into the matter continues. A teenage boy is behind bars after fatally shooting 2 people and injuring another. At around 8:20 p.m. on Tuesday, the 29th of August, authorities responded to a residence at 1141 Poppy Avenue in Orlando, Florida on reports of a drive-by shooting. A 6-year-old girl was shot while inside a living room and was later declared deceased by medical staff. The child's mother was also shot and sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators said that a man who was also shot was dropped off at Health Central Emergency Room in Ocoee and was later pronounced dead. The deceased victims have been identified as 6-year-old Ajalia Hashem and 19-year-old Isaiah Wright. Evidence markers at the scene indicated that dozens of shots were fired. Police said they believe the 6-year-old and the mother were not the intended targets. On the 2nd of September, 15-year-old Nico Brown was arrested and faces homicide charges and is held at the Orange County Jail without bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 54-year-old Corey Ravel is behind bars for fatally shooting his wife inside their home. At 11:23 p.m. on Friday the 1st of September, authorities responded to a home at 820 Moorhen Way in Crestview, Florida in reference to a person down. Police said they received a call from a woman who said her son called, telling her he shot and killed his wife. When officers arrived at the scene, they made contact with Corey and found the body of his wife Cristovelli Marino inside the home, and Corey was arrested. During the course of the investigation, it was discovered that Corey contacted his mother at around 2 p.m. by telephone and advised he was calling an ambulance after he shot Krista. It wasn't until 11:23 p.m. that Corey's mother discovered that Corey had not contacted the ambulance or notified law enforcement, at which time she notified the Crestview Police Department. Corey is charged with first-degree capital murder and tampering or destroying evidence. He's held at the Okaloosa County Jail without bond. The motive of the attack and the events leading up to the shooting are unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 16-year-old Nathan Mays is behind bars for fatally shooting 18-year-old Jalen Poturalski. At around 10:40 a.m. on Saturday the 2nd of September, authorities responded to the 200 block of Langdon Street in Toledo, Ohio on report of a large street fight in progress. When first responders arrived, they found Jalen near her home in a critical condition with a gunshot wound to her chest. Medics transported her to St. Vincent Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 11:26 a.m. Police said a neighbourhood dispute turned into a fight, and at some point a gun was pulled. It's unclear what the dispute was about. Nathan, who remained on scene, was identified as a suspect in the shooting and he was arrested. He was booked into the Lucas County Juvenile Justice Center and charged with Jalen's murder. The investigation into the matter continues. 24-year-old Marcus Rodriguez is behind bars for fatally shooting his long-term friend, 24-year-old Vicente Arvizo, during an altercation. The incident occurred at just after 10 p.m. on the 1st of September at Marcus's apartment at 12801 Copper Avenue Northeast in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Police said the pair were drinking, and Marcos pulled out a gun after the two started arguing. Both men and their girlfriend spent the day out with family members socializing and drinking, and went back to Marcus's apartment for more drinks. Marcus, who was attending barber school, even gave Vicente a haircut. In an interview with detectives, the girlfriends gave different stories about who instigated the confrontation inside the apartment, but both reportedly said Marcos eventually produced a handgun and shot Vicente, killing him. Marcos told investigators that he feared for his life and the lives of his family. His girlfriend told detectives that Vicente was getting physical with both women and approached Marcos with his fists clenched. She claimed Marcos shot Vicente in self-defense. Marcos also reportedly told police who first responded to the scene, "I did it. He made me do it, and I did not have a choice." Vicente's girlfriend said that just prior to Marcus firing his gun, he told Vicente, "I'll shoot you, bitch, and I'll get away with it. It'll be self-defense." Police said that Vicente was not armed, and they located his body shortly thereafter. Marcus was arrested and charged with an open count of murder and tampering with evidence. The investigation into the matter continues. 37-year-old Stephen Thomas Rodder is behind bars for murdering his 16-year-old son Stephen Lee Rodder with an angle grinder. The incident occurred on the morning of Monday the 4th of September at a home in the 2500 block of Old Bartow Road in Lake Wales, Florida. Stephen Sr. was living with his father, 67-year-old Thomas Rodder, along with Stephen Jr. at the residence. The 16-year-old was an 11th grader at Frostproof High School and was due to start work next week at Burger King so he could buy a car. He was studying to become an electrician, which was his dream job. He was living with his grandfather to help him out while his grandmother recovered in rehab. Stephen Sr. began living with his son and father about a month ago, after living out of state and had an outstanding warrant in South Carolina, although authorities have not said what that warrant was for. At around 8 a.m. that morning, Thomas left to visit his wife in rehab. When he returned at around 11 a.m, he was met outside the residence by his son. Stephen Sr. said to his dad, "I wouldn't go in there if I was you. "I killed someone. You may need to call the police." Thomas thought his son was just speaking in an odd manner when he entered his home and found his grandson dead in the dining room area. Stephen Sr. then fled from the scene, but deputies caught him about a mile away on Highway 60. Investigators said an angle grinder was used to kill the teenager. The motive in the attack is unclear. However, authorities said that Stephen Sr. had a history of meth use and was prone to psychotic episodes. Stephen Sr. is charged with his son's murder and is held at the Polk County Jail. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said, "It breaks our heart. There aren't adequate words to explain how horrific this event is. We lost a great young man today, and we have an evil man in custody, and we're going to do our best to see he spends the rest of his life in prison." 39-year-old Bradley Wayne Stokes is behind bars after fatally stabbing his 37-year-old pregnant ex-girlfriend Treasure Hennessy. At around 12:15 a.m. on Saturday the 2nd of September, authorities received a call about a body found at a fire station off Knuckles Road and Black Bottom Road in Fort Mitchell, Alabama, which also serves as a safe house for domestic violence victims. Treasure was found deceased with multiple stab wounds. Bradley was arrested in nearby Columbus, Georgia, and is charged with capital murder for the killing of Treasure and the unborn child. Treasure was 8 weeks pregnant with his child. He's also facing a fleeing and eluding charge after he attempted to evade capture. Bradley was released from federal prison on the 2nd of June after serving 14 years of a 16-year sentence for weapon charges and manslaughter in the 2008 shooting death of his girlfriend Crystal Bailey. Not long after he was released, he and Treasure began dating. Treasure filed at least 2 domestic violence reports against Bradley while they were dating. Treasure moved out of Bradley's home late last month and into a domestic violence shelter to get away from him. Bradley found out where she was staying on Friday the 1st of September. He hid in that location and waited for her to arrive at after 8 p.m. and killed her. He then moved her vehicle behind a barn across the road to conceal it before driving away in his car. Investigators said they believe Bradley thought Treasure wanted to pursue an arrest warrant for domestic violence calls, which would have violated his probation and sent him back to prison. Investigators have recovered evidence including a knife believed to be used in the murder, the vehicle Bradley was driving and his cell phone. Bradley will be extradited back to Russell County this week. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. 63-year-old David Corneliuson is behind bars for fatally shooting his 66-year-old wife Mary Corneliuson. At just after 8 p.m. on Monday the 28th of August, authorities responded to a home in the 34900 block of 576th Avenue in Moore Road, Minnesota after David rang 911 to say he just shot his wife and that she was dead on the couch. Authorities said that David didn't seem to care and told dispatch that his wife is beyond help and there was nothing else to talk about. A dispatcher directed him to wait on the back deck for a deputy to contact him. When a deputy arrived, he located David standing outside on the deck of the home and arrested him without incident. A deputy entered the home where he found Mary deceased with a gunshot wound. David was taken to the Moore Road Police Department and while interviewed, he admitted that he shot his wife with a handgun after they had a verbal argument. It's unclear what the argument was about. He's charged with second-degree intentional murder and is held at the Rose County Jail on a $700,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. Police are investigating a shooting that left a woman dead and a man critically injured. At around 10:15 a.m. on Monday the 4th of September, authorities responded to Motel 6 at 1401 Eastern Boulevard in Montgomery, Alabama, after receiving a call that 2 people had been shot. When first responders arrived, they found an unresponsive woman with a gunshot wound. She was pronounced dead at the scene and has been identified as 20-year-old Adriana Conville. Officers also located an adult male with a life-threatening gunshot wound. He was taken to a local hospital for treatment. A person of interest was taken into custody for questioning, however no charges have been announced. The investigation into the matter continues. A man is behind bars for fatally stabbing his older brother after serving him an eviction notice from their childhood home. 61-year-old Donna Dubray lived with his brother 63-year-old Edgar Dubray at the home at 311 Southwest 71st Avenue in Pembroke Pines, Florida since their parents' death. Issues arose when Edgar grew tired of his brother, who's disabled and unemployed, not paying the bills and not helping with maintaining the home. Edgar owned the property and gone through the eviction process, and on Friday the 1st of September, he notified Donald that he had 24 hours to vacate the residence. This enraged Donald, so he stabbed Edgar to death. When Edgar did not show up for a job he had planned with a friend on Monday the 4th of September, a friend called his and Edgar's boss, who said he hadn't heard from him either. A relative of the brothers told the friend that she tried calling both of them, but did not get an answer. The friend went to Edgar's home and saw cars in the driveway, but no one answered the door. He could hear Edgar's phone ringing inside, but still no one answered. At 9:06 a.m. that morning, he rang Pembroke Pines Police to request a welfare check. When officers arrived at the property, they found blood on the inside of a sliding glass door in the back of the house and saw blood on the wall when they looked through the window. Fire rescue forced entry inside, finding Edgar lying dead on the dining room floor, blood on the kitchen cabinets and walls. They found Donald fast asleep in bed and he was taken into custody. While interviewed by police, he admitted to stabbing his brother. He said he came home on Friday afternoon and his brother told him to pack and leave. He said during an argument his brother punched him in the face, so he grabbed a large kitchen knife, followed his brother into the dining room and stabbed him over and over. Donald said he didn't call for help after stabbing his brother because he wanted him to bleed out from his own injuries and not have to deal with it. When an officer asked Donald if he knew his brother was dead, he smiled and said, "Oh yeah, I stabbed him a bunch with a big old knife," and said that he walked by his brother's body on the floor several times over a few days to go into the kitchen. He told the officer he'd lived at the home all his life, and once evicted he'd have no place to go, and guessed he would have lived under a bridge in a cardboard box. Donald is charged with second-degree murder, and is held at Broward County Jail without bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 22-year-old Anthony Andrews is behind bars for fatally beating his girlfriend's toddler son. At 5:49 a.m. on Monday the 4th of September, authorities responded to a residence along the 2600 block of Margot Street in Memphis, Tennessee, on reports of an unresponsive 2-year-old boy. When first responders arrived, they found a toddler not breathing, bleeding from the mouth with bruising on his abdomen, sides and back. The little boy also had a long bruise on his face starting at the forehead down to the jaw. Paramedics performed CPR on the child and transported him to a local hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Officers spoke with the child's mother, Sade Barcaray, who said the boy was in good health at 11:15 p.m. the prior night. She told police she left her child in her boyfriend Anthony's care while she slept. She also informed officers she was aware that Anthony disciplines a child and has seen him use a belt or a braided dog toy to strike the child while disciplining him. Sade said she noticed excess bruising and wounds on her child, but Anthony claimed the injuries occurred when the child fell out of his bed. Anthony admitted to police that he has hit the boy harder than he should have in the previous weeks. He told police that earlier that morning, he hit the toddler with a belt and struck him 7 to 8 times with a braided dog toy, striking him on the back, face and buttocks. He also admitted to striking the boy with an open hand in the chest at least once or twice before shoving the child in the corner. He said that he then put the child back in his bed until the child fell out of bed several minutes later when he was unresponsive. Anthony was arrested and charged with aggravated child abuse and aggravated child neglect. He settled the Shelby County Jail on a $250,000 bond. The charges against Anthony will likely be upgraded to murder when the autopsy reports come back. The investigation into the matter continues. 27-year-old Garrett Littenberg is behind bars after fatally stabbing his roommate. At 10:14 p.m. on Tuesday the 29th of August, authorities responded to a home at 1663 Zamia Avenue in Boulder, Colorado on a call about a domestic disturbance. Upon arrival, police found the door to the house open and observed footprints that led from the first floor living room up the stairs to the second level. Police could hear Garrett upstairs yelling that he was unarmed and he was coming out with his hands up. When he came out, he was shirtless and both of his arms were covered in blood. He was arrested and taken into custody. In the upstairs bedroom, police found a man unresponsive on the ground, stabbed multiple times, lying in a massive pool of his own blood. He was surrounded by several knives and a flannel shirt had been wrapped around the victim's neck and head. The victim, identified as 30-year-old Kirk Smolka, was pronounced dead at the scene. In an interview with police, Garrett's mother said that the victim called her at 10:02 p.m. that night to say that Garrett was not acting right. While she and other family members were on the phone with Garrett, they overheard what they believed to be a physical altercation. They heard muffled voices and what sounded like Garrett screaming about Putin rape and complete gibberish. Garrett's mother then got the opportunity to talk to Garrett directly. In response to repeated questions about what happened to his roommate, the family member said that Garrett responded by saying, "Don't worry about him, he's dead. I killed him." Another family member who was on the call told police that Garrett said, "I killed him. I'm going to prison for the rest of my life." Garrett does not have a prior criminal history, and his family members told police that he'd been taking prescription medications for psychosis and anxiety. Garrett is charged with first-degree murder, deliberation with intent with a weapon, and he's held at the Boulder County Jail with bond set at $10 million. The investigation into the matter continues. A 33-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting his mother and stepfather. Zachary Delane Summerall faces 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his mother, 57-year-old Tammy Keckler, and stepfather 60-year-old William Keckler. At 4:04 p.m. on Monday the 28th of August, Zachary called 911 to report he shot and killed his parents inside the home at 79 West Rock Springs Drive in Peoria, Arizona. He said he did execution shots on them and they were not breathing. He stayed on the phone with dispatch while officers responded to the residence. He told the person he placed a gun on the table by the front door, then walked outside and surrendered. As he was being taken into custody, he spontaneously said, "I just killed my parents." Inside the home, police found the victims dead with gunshot wounds to their heads. A handgun was found on the table near the front door, and several casings were found on the floor near Tammy's body. Zachary told police it all started over an argument in the kitchen about money habits and not contributing to the household. He became angry and told his mother, "You're dead to me." His stepfather tried to calm him down and told him to apologize and take back what he said, but his mother said that she did not want to hear an apology and told him to gather his belongings and move out. Zachary then became extremely angry and snapped. He went upstairs to retrieve his handgun from his bedroom cabinet. When his stepfather followed him upstairs and asked for the gun, Zachary took the gun out, pointed it at him and shot him several times. His mother, who was still downstairs, started screaming. Zachary said he rushed downstairs and saw a blur, which he said he knew was his mother. He said he aimed at the blur and shot her several times. He then unloaded the firearm, placed it on the table near the front door and called the police to report what happened. He told investigators that after the shooting, he hugged his mother and got blood on his clothing. Zachary said that neither his mother or stepfather were armed or posed any physical threat to him. Zachary told police he suffers from mental issues and is currently taking medication, but felt the medication was working well until this incident happened. Neighbors were shocked. One of them said the suspect's parents have been taking care of him. He's not a teenager or anything. He's been with them for a long time. Zachary is held at the Maricopa County Jail with bail set at $1 million. He's set to appear for a preliminary hearing on the 7th of September. The investigation into the matter continues. A 22-year-old woman is behind bars after stabbing her grandfather when they got into a fight over her hygiene habits. On Tuesday, the 29th of August, authorities responded to a residence on the 3900 block of Fontainebleau Road in Keithville, Louisiana on report of a disturbance. Carrington Harris told deputies that she and her grandparents started arguing after they asked her to have a shower. After they requested Carrington to wash herself, she began damaging property inside the house and then turned the power off from inside. Her grandparents attempted to restrain her, but she escaped and found a knife in the kitchen and stabbed her grandfather in the face. He was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment, but an update on his condition has not been provided. Carrington then ran from the home and into the woods and hid for several hours until deputies found her hiding behind a house nearby. She was arrested and charged with domestic abuse battery and domestic abuse battery with a dangerous weapon. She's held at the Caddo Correction Center without bond. 46-year-old Tommy Reed Jr. is behind bars for fatally shooting 29-year-old Ladarius Armstrong. The incident occurred at around 1 a.m. on Wednesday the 30th of August at an Exxon gas station at 325 Highway 19 North in Meridian, Mississippi. Investigators said that Tommy was involved in a physical altercation with Ladarius. During the struggle, Tommy pulled out a handgun and shot Ladarius once in the back of the head before fleeing the scene. Medics transported Ladarius to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Tommy later turned himself in to police. Tommy is charged with manslaughter and felon in possession of a weapon. He's held at the Lauderdale County Jail on a $900,000 bond. It's unclear what events led to the altercation or if the men knew each other. The investigation into the matter continues. 20-year-old Hannah Wingert and her 21-year-old boyfriend Joshua Moody are behind bars after a toddler son was almost beaten to death. At 12:36 p.m. on Wednesday the 23rd of August, authorities responded to a residence in the 500 block of West 6th Street in Cheyenne, Wyoming after receiving a 911 call requesting a welfare check on a 2-year-old boy. The caller was identified as Hannah's mother, who told police that she picked up her daughter, Joshua, and a grandson from a motel earlier that morning, and she noticed that the toddler looked horrible with severe bruising covering his face and arms. She said that both the boy's eyes were swollen shut, and he'd been fitted with a bizarre homemade brace on his right leg. Hannah's mother called police as well as the Department of Family Services after dropping them off to report what she had seen. When first responders arrived at the premises, they located the child suffering life-threatening injuries. He was transported to Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, where he was initially assessed and then airlifted to Denver Children's Hospital. It was confirmed that the child had multiple broken bones and internal injuries. Doctors said the boy had shattered both the tibia and fibula in his right leg and also suffered a fractured vertebrae in his back, bleeding in the brain, pancreatitis, liver lacerations, an acute kidney injury, a broken clavicle and 2 popped eardrums. During the investigation, detectives learned that the child was battered by Hannah and Joshua. In an interview at the hospital, Hannah initially told police that her son had slipped in the shower. She knew he had a sprained ankle and a bump near his eye, but claimed not to know how the other injuries were caused. She said that the toddler has a history of self-harm and frequently throws himself into objects and off objects. On Thursday, the 24th of August, Joshua called police and claimed that Hannah admitted to everything. In a subsequent interview, he told investigators that he witnessed Hannah repeatedly punch her son in the head and face. The boy is reportedly autistic, and Joshua said that Hannah is often angry at the boy because he's often sick or injured. He said on the 23rd of August, Hannah was beating the boy while he lay in bed, and then grabbed him by both his legs and swung him like a baseball bat from left to right towards the window of the motel. As she finished the swing, Hannah only let go of one of the boy's legs, allowing him to swing around her body before stopping abruptly as he collided with her shoulder. Joshua said he heard the toddler's legs snap. Joshua said that Hannah then put the boy back into bed and covered his mouth while he screamed out in pain. He said he couldn't look at the boy while his mother beat him because it bothered him, but he said he admitted to watching everything happen, but being scared to do anything because of Hannah's mental stuff, then clarified by saying she is bipolar. Joshua said that Hannah held a knife to his throat and demanded he tell no one what he saw. Joshua acknowledged his history of domestic violence and assaults towards women, but he said he left that life behind. On Friday, the 25th of August, the pair were arrested and charged with attempted murder and abuse charges. If convicted, they face up to 25 years in prison. A mother who pulled the hair of her 2-year-old son while live streaming, and a woman present who did nothing to intervene were arrested in Marinette County, Wisconsin on Thursday, the 31st of August. 24-year-old Natasha Hunt is charged with abuse intentionally causing harm and disorderly conduct for the incident with her son. 26-year-old Amara Burns is charged with abuse intentionally causing harm, party to a crime, battery to an officer, disorderly conduct and resisting or obstructing an officer. When police first questioned the women, both denied posting a video or having any knowledge of any abuse. The boy showed no signs of injury, and the women told police he was not injured. Police then reviewed the video. In the video, Natasha approached Amara and the child. Natasha grabbed the toddler by the hair and began pulling the victim's head violently in multiple directions. Natasha was looking at the camera with an angry look on her face. The toddler was saying "ow" repeatedly and began to cry. Amara put up both of her hands. She did not appear to be assisting the pulling of the hair, besides holding the toddler on her lap while Natasha caused the pain. Amara did not make any attempt to stop Natasha. For a brief moment, Natasha stopped pulling the child's hair. Then she began pulling the toddler's hair again to the point that she pulled the child off Amara's lap and out of the picture. Crying could be heard and Natasha was seen moving around as she was still pulling the child's hair. Amara looked in the direction of where the incident was occurring and looked back at the camera smiling. She again made no attempt to stop Natasha from harming the child. While the women were arrested, Amara resisted kicking an officer in the face. The investigation into the matter continues.